Yes. Okay, I would like to call this meeting to order. I have to take your seats. Thank you. So I'd like to recognize that we are in Prince Albert. Prince Albert is located within Treaty 6 territory and is homeland of the Dakota and Métis. We extend our respect to all Indigenous peoples for their valuable past and present contributions and recognize and respect the cultural diversity within the city of Prince Albert. So I'll get the first order of business is the approval of the agenda. Councillor Miller.
So moved, Chair.
Thank you. If I can remember how to do this. 1 second. Sorry. Okay. Voting is open. And that's closed and carried. Thank you. Next order on the agenda is number 3, declaration of conflict of interest. You all know what that is, so if you have one, please declare. Okay. Moving on, number 4, adoption of minutes. Oh. Mayor Dion.
So moved.
Thank you. The vote's open. One more. Closed and that's carried. Move on. Delegations, we have a few in attendance today. So our first attendance is Municipal Food Waste Diversion Program, Food Cycle Sciences, a PowerPoint presentation by Jacob Hanlon, MSc Environmental Sustainability Municipal Solutions Manager. Is he on the call?
Good evening, staff and council.
Good evening, sir. You're on, so you're welcome to start your presentation.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen here and get started. So I just want to quickly start by saying thank you very much for having me on this afternoon. My name is Jacob Hanlon. I'm the Municipal Solutions Manager at Food Cycle Science, and I really appreciate your time in the 5 minutes that I have here to go through my presentation. So to briefly just give a bit of background about who we are as a company, Food Cycle Science is a Canadian company. We are based out of Ottawa, and we are 100% focused on food waste diversion solutions. So we do this using our Food Cycler technology. It is an in-home food recycler, and while it is sold at the retail level to consumers, the reason I'm here is to speak about our municipal programs where we implement it either as a complement to existing curbside organics programs or in municipalities where they just don't necessarily have the appropriate infrastructure for a curbside program for organics. So our municipal programs help a lot of communities across Canada. We have 130 Canadian municipal partnerships across 9 provinces and 2 territories. Most of these municipal partners face challenges when it comes to organic waste, either where, as I mentioned, curbside collection for organics isn't the most viable option for them, or they are looking for other options to help divert organic waste from their waste. So I'm going to play a quick video here, and for the sake of time, I might cut it a little bit short, but just to give a quick depiction of what the Food Cycler is, and then I'm going to talk about our municipal programs and how we implement this technology in the programs. Essentially, the Food Cycler is an in-home food recycling appliance. You can put in your food waste. This includes things like meat, poultry, fish, dairy, even some bones. It's about 99% of your daily food waste that you generate. And in an overnight process, typically 8 hours or less, you end up with, as you can see, about a handful of byproduct. So that before and after, which I'll just depict here in this slide briefly, it's about a 90% reduction in the weight and volume of food waste from what goes in to what comes out. And with that, it's, again, about an 8-hour cycle time, so overnight, quite minimal electricity consumption, similar to using a computer for the same amount of time. And then that byproduct is actually something that has many applications. So while it is not finished compost, we do relate it to that of a fertilizer. So it is high in nutrient density. It's beneficial for your soil health and plant growth. And these are just some options as to what residents can use that byproduct for as they use their food cycler and keep their food waste out of the garbage. Most of them add it to their garden or a backyard composter, but it can also go to local compost sites, local farms, community gardens, and then green bins or curbside organics facilities if those are available. So I'm going to just touch on what our actual programs look like now and the results we've gotten from them. So I mentioned that we're working with 130 Canadian municipalities. To date, we've completed pilot programs in over 100 of them, and part of the pilot process is to administer out a survey for residents who have participated to fill out. We've had over 10,000 households provide their feedback on the program, as well as their usage and diversion numbers. So I'll just go over two of these here. I believe you have a copy of my presentation on your end, so I don't want to take up too much time here, but I'm just going to touch on that first one, the participation rate. So within our programs, 98% of residents who have participated in them report they're going to keep using their food cycling moving forward as their waste diversion solutions for food waste. Really great and encouraging results there. As we look at curbside organics programs across the country, the average is between 50 and 60% for participation. So I'll use the example of Ottawa quickly here. Ottawa's Green Bin program, been around since 2010, about a 57% participation rate across the city. So quite low, and it's a scenario where having other options like backyard composters, like food cyclers, could help boost that participation. The other stat I'll touch on is that net new diversion, second from the bottom. Residents are reporting, based on their cycles per week and how often they're using their machine, about 300 kilograms of food waste per year per household is being diverted from the landfill due to those residents using their food cyclers. It's a really significant amount here. It's the average we've seen across over 10,000 households, and along with that participation rate and these other statistics here, very encouraging to see. So to touch on the pilot timeline here, with our pilot programs, which is typically where municipalities start, it's a 12-week program. Residents will purchase a food cycler at the subsidized rate, which we'll see in the next slide here. They'll use their food cycler for 12 weeks, and then at the end of that 12 weeks, they fill out that exit survey. We then put all of that material and that data into a really nice report, and we present it right back to you. And then with that, we can look at options for expanding the program, extending it to larger percentage of your households. And then with that, we can align it with any waste management or climate change strategies that you may have. This is just a brief overview of what that pilot program subsidy model looks like. Long story short here, just for the sake of time, everyone kind of chips in for the pilot. We have our municipal discount from our company. We have the federal funding that we've received from Agri-Food and Agriculture Canada. And then we ask for a municipal subsidy of $100 per household. And then the resident chips in a bit as well. This is for the pilot program. It's to help test the program in your community, gain some data, and we found that residents are happy to chip in a portion of the cost to help see if this is a viable program for this specific community. And then after that 12 weeks, the resident gets to keep their food cycler, and we have a report that goes back to you, and we can look at how this could look as a more community-wide program based on the success of that pilot. Second last slide here before I wrap up, just because I want to leave some time for questions. These are some pilot sizes that we recommend. This is based on our experience, but just to give kind of a summary of what that municipal investment is for the purpose of the pilot. If we looked at a 100 household program, for example, a $10,000 municipal investment would be for those 100 houses, and that includes our team helping with registration, promotion, customer support, providing residents with material and support throughout the program, and then getting all that data and presenting it back to you. This is my last slide here. I'm not going to go through these points as I believe you have a copy on your end, but just some reasons that may resonate with you as to why this pilot could be beneficial for your community. I think the first one is just extending the lifespan of your landfill, providing residents with an option that's a year-round option for diverting their organics, and going towards climate change and future waste management decision-making as to if you're looking at investigating any other types of organics programs as well. You'll get some data from this pilot to help go towards making the best decision on what program could be best for you. I realize I went through this quite quickly here, so I guess my ask here at the end is just for you to receive this presentation as information. I mentioned we are partnered with a ton of municipalities across Canada, and I think our biggest challenge is just the awareness that this is a fairly new program starting out in 2020. We understand that it's not as common as the curbside green bin program, so it's what we're doing is just spreading the word and presenting information. So if there is interest in looking at a pilot program, happy to be referred to a staff member to work together to bring a report back to council. But with all that being said, just want to say thank you very much for your time. I realize I did go through that quite quickly, so happy to answer any questions or clarify anything that I may not have been clear about. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jacob Hanlon, for that presentation. Any questions from council? Mayor Dion.
I'll sort of combine a bunch of mine because you could probably answer it because you've done a pilot program. For someone that lives alone like myself, so is a volume an issue, and how long do you leave that in the process or whatever it is before it starts to smell and you have to put it somewhere else? Is it a daily thing that you use and then you got to dump it out, otherwise it causes odor, or am I worried about a volume? That would be my two things, because I don't produce that much, but it interests me, anything that you can reuse again. And then about smell. So those two comments, please. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions, Mayor. And to answer your first one, in terms of the volume, we actually have two different food cycler sizes for our programs. We actually have a third one that is being released in June. So the smallest one is a 2.5 liter capacity bucket, then the 3.5 liter capacity, and then a 5 liter capacity. So the smaller ones we recommend for households of 1 to 2 people. On average, they would use that probably 4 times per week is what we've seen in our programs. The larger unit, the 5 liter one, we recommend for households of 3 people or more. When we started these programs back in 2020, some of the early feedback was my machine is not big enough for my household. So that's where we've introduced the different sizes over the last 4 years. In terms of the odor, every food cycler has a carbon filter inside. It's essentially activated charcoal in there. So no odors come out of the machine, whether your food waste is sitting in there idle or you're actually running the process and it's cycling the food. No odors come out. The machine can be filled up kind of on a daily basis until it's full, but it can also be run when it's not completely full. It'll just be a shorter cycle time in that sense. For the filters, they are refillable. We offer an online platform for residents to get more filter refills from us, but you can also go to a pet store and use aquarium carbon as well. On average, filters last 3 to 4 months, so you're looking at 3 to 4 filter changes per year for getting that new carbon in there. And the last thing I'll mention with that, the machine works exactly the same if you don't change your filters. Some people like to put it in their garage or in a laundry room or a basement where smell isn't necessarily a factor. So whether they want to change your filters or not is completely up to them.
Councillor Sullivan.
Well, thank you for the presentation, and reducing the volume of organic waste certainly has advantages to the city in terms of lower labor costs and longevity, I guess, of our cells. I do have a question. Given the other 130 municipalities that are participating in this, do all of them choose to participate to the $100 subsidy? Do some do 50, some 75, or is $100 pretty standard in terms of the other communities you work with?
Thank you for the question. And on our end, the requirement for a municipality is a minimum of $100 per household subsidy. We find as this is a waste diversion program that benefits the municipality, benefits saving landfill space and reducing waste costs, it is important for us that the municipality does contribute to that. But we have had quite a few who have actually contributed a bit more so that the cost is lower for the resident. We do have a low income add-on option as well, where 10% of the households can actually get it at a further discounted price that we take on our end. So that $100 minimum subsidy is the minimum requirement. I'll quickly touch on the program in the city of Nelson, British Columbia. It's a citywide organics program using food cyclers. So each of their 5,000 homes are currently getting a food cycler. We're about a third of the way through implementing that. That is at no cost for those residents. Anytime you go citywide with a program like this, you can't necessarily expect every resident to be able to contribute financially, just as with curbside collection for garbage or anything like that. So in those larger programs, the municipalities typically cover the whole cost or apply for grants to help cover them as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Kilmer.
I will move to receive and file.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the presentation. It sounds like there's no more questions, so we'll let you go and we'll go ahead and open up the vote.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you. Vote's open. That's accepted. And we'll move on. The next presentation we have is the Veterans Grave Maintenance Account, Royal Canadian Legion Branch Number 2. Verbal presentation by President of the Royal Canadian Legion, Rick Hodgson. If you would come up to the mic, sir. Oh, you want to arm? I'll arm your. Oh. 1 second. Yeah, I'm just going to arm your mic here. There you go.
Good evening, everybody. We're here for the Legion tonight, looking into closing out a veterans graves maintenance account was activated in 1993, and according to the records, it hasn't been used since 1999. The account was created by the Ladies Auxiliary and the Prince Albert Legion to approve work and expenditures to the graves. Now, the maintenance that is handled by the federal government Veterans Affairs, so we do not use that account anymore. And the Ladies Auxiliary dissolved in 2018, so we plan on taking the money to the Legion, using it for supporting our veterans and families, and maintenance and upkeep of our building. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Do we have any questions or comments? Mayor Dion.
No, thank you for your presentation. You covered it all, how it started, the purpose, somebody else took it over. So I'll move the recommendation, and I have no problem supporting your request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussions on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and open the vote. Vote's open. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, sir, for your presentation.
Thank you, everybody.
The next delegation we have in attendance is a project proposal for ceremonial grounds from the Prince Albert Indian Métis Friendship Center, Youth Services, a verbal presentation by Shane Bird. So go ahead, sir, if you're ready.
Hello.
Mike's armed.
Okay. Good afternoon, Council. It's an honor to come and speak to you guys today. And it's a beautiful day today. My name is Shane Nathan Musley Bird. My given name is Musqueam, which translates to Bear Man Who Leads. I'm from Lac La Ronge Indian Band First Nation and part of the Treaty 6 Adhesion Territory. I come to you today not for myself, but for others, for the ones that don't have a voice, for our future generations to come, our unborn. I work tirelessly day and night, and every morning I get up, I think of our young ones, the ones that suffer, the ones that don't have food in their bellies, the ones that are sick, the ones that are traumatized, with abuse, physical, sexual abuse, and I know that every day that there's no change or no support for them, it hurts. It hurts my heart, my spirit. And I try my hardest, with the support that I have around myself. And I want to see change. I want to see good things come from good people like yourselves. And I just want to acknowledge our knowledge keepers that are here today as well. Liz Satie, Janet Carrier, and Henry Felix. We have years and years of knowledge here, that they lead with their hearts. And that's what I try to do, is lead with my heart. I lead with passion, and to be a good role model, not only for my family, but, for my community. And PA has been a home to me for many years. And, the things that I grew up with, the addictions, the abuse, and the discrimination I faced as a young man, and I want to see that change in a good way. And that's why I've come to you guys today. And this project proposal for the ceremonial grounds is something that, I dedicated myself. And by that, I mean through ceremony. So I made that commitment that I have to follow through, because in our ways of life, if I don't follow through, something could not only happen to me, but my family. So I have to make sure that I see this through in my time on Mother Earth. So I've worked on a project proposal and what we would like to see with partnership, not only with the city, but other organizations within the city, and to help spearhead this, to make this a reality. Just to touch base on this is, we're not only going to be addressing the 94 calls to actions within the city, but we're also going to provide a safe place for our youth and our families to come and heal, to come and be part of something that is where there's love, there's caring, that we can create a space for them to not only be a part of, but to move forward in their healing journey. So I present that this project proposal is that we obtain land as a partnership with the city and with other organizations up in Little Red River Park, Upper Plains, to see how far we can go to address these calls to actions with ourselves and other organizations. I'm very passionate about this, and I want to see how we can work together, in a good way, and to follow our traditional laws and protocols that were passed down from generation to generation. And with moving forward, we would have to follow those traditional laws and protocols, and we would invite you guys to come in and educate yourself in our walk of life, to educate non-Indigenous to come and be a part of this, so that we can work towards reconciliation, with each other, and have an open mind, have an open heart. So what I ask of you guys is, to be open-minded, and to give each other that love and that strength that we need to continue to work towards reconciliation, to address those 94 calls to action. And I just want to thank you guys for taking that time, to listen, to hear me out, to review this project proposal. And, anything is possible if you put your heart and your mind to it. And I'm a strong believer in that. And I know that I'm dedicating myself to see this through. And I want your blessing, and I would like to see support from you guys as well. With that, I give thanks. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. We'll take a couple questions from anybody Okay, we've got a couple there. Councillor Cody.
Yes, thanks ever so much, Shane, for your excellent report. And certainly, the book tells the story as well. And it's very well done, I must say. And we thank you kindly for that. And I think your words were spoken well. You told us exactly what it is that we should do to help you as well, and your organization and the people that you represent. We really appreciate that. So I will certainly move the suggested disposition that the correspondence be received and referred to the Community Services Department and Planning Development Department for review and report. And I hope we do have a report in a timely fashion, as quickly as we can, so that you can get on with the project. Now, thank you kindly.
Thank you.
Mayor Dion.
Yes, and I want to wish you luck. Exciting program, great brochure. It explained everything there is. I just want to reach out as we go through our process. At any time, if you need a letter of support from this council, please ask us. I know when you go for grants, they'll want letters from us saying that we support it and that we're on side. We're more than welcome to do that, even though to help you get the process going. I know when you ask the federal government different levels, they're going to ask you for letters of support. Just please reach out to us and we'd be pleased to supply them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Solomon.
Thank you. Tawau, welcome. Tiniki, Piri Wamwe Masi Chow, and thank you. Your presentation was certainly informative, and certainly there's recognition that there's work to be done on the 94 calls to action. So thank you for that. And I also thank anybody that had contribution to the vision that was put forward to us today. There was a lot of thought put into that. I do have a question. We know, sorry, I guess before I get to the question, we know Prince Albert has been considered the gathering place for centuries and beyond. Do we know, or can you tell me more about why the proposed site was selected as a potential place for the ceremonial grounds?
So I did meet with, a number of elders, and we did look at different options for different sites, and, and I did tobacco and followed protocol with Dr. Leo Amani, and he did explain to me the significance of Little Red. And, our people were nomadic, and we traveled, and, and Little Red River was a place of gathering for different nations, and the stories that I've heard is significant that, to revitalize the area, in a good way so that our people can, move forward with that healing. And we thought that that site was something that was easily accessible to our urban population.
Thank you. I'll leave it at that for now. We'll see.
Councillor Grodnick.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Shane, for your presentation. I really appreciate it, and also really appreciate the report. A lot of things I like about the report, especially the fact that you have it in phases and what's going to happen in each phase. And over approximately 5 or 6 years, this will come to fruition. So that's really good and really interesting. And I think it really helps sell such a ambitious program. And I hope other levels of government support you on this initiative. And Little Red, like the Little Red Master Plan, does acknowledge the traditional lands, and I don't know the Cree names or the Dakota names, I think it was, but we have all the names there of all the different areas of the park, what it was originally called, and we acknowledge that, yeah, we've been a country for 157 years, but there's also 10,000 years of history prior to 1867 that we also acknowledge, and as City Council as a government speaking to the Métis and First Nation governments, it's always great to enter into partnerships as one government to another government. And so you have my 100% support on this project. And good to see the knowledge keepers. I know Liz, I've had many, many discussions with her, and I'm glad you're here supporting it as well, Liz. It's wonderful to talk to you and learn from you as you are so willing to always share your thoughts and ideas with us and with me. So thank you. Thank you for the presentation. You have my support 100%.
Thank you.
Yeah, a couple comments before I go to you, Councillor Lennox Zepp. Really excited to see this on the agenda, and you know the work you put into this brochure, highlighting some of your hopes moving forward, and laying it out in a way that you know government would be taking it serious because it is going to take a lot of work and different levels. You know, it's quite the ask, but really exciting to see you know, this in the works and on the rails, because I know when I first started, you know, there was lots of talks around that area and what to do with it. It hasn't come forward, and so glad to see this report and your initiative to bring this to us. So yes, fully supporting this venture of yours. So we'll go to Councillor Lennox Zepp.
Thank you. I echo those comments. Thank you for the beautiful presentation and proposal, and I appreciate it being tied to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's 94 calls to action. So I hope this does go forward, and I'm sure I could learn a lot.
Thank you.
Councillor Kilmer.
Thank you very much for the presentation. As I was reading it, it just filled my heart first with, you know, having a history with you, Shane, as well, and the work that you've done through your life so far. And I look forward to you know, continuing to follow you. And I too am 100% behind you in whatever that you want to do and work with you. So please do reach out. I do want to remind everyone as well, last year at the fair that we had, the Central Avenue Fair, Shane did that hard work to bring the village onto the riverbank, and that village, that just added so much to our community, and the drone going through it just, I still just saying it just brings so much to me and our community about who we are, where we've been, and this presentation shows me where we're going to. So thank you very much, and I look forward to the report.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no more speakers, thank you so much for the presentation, and we'll go ahead and open our votes. So,
Thank you.
votes open. And that's carried unanimously. Okay, so the next order of business is our consent agenda. Okay, any thoughts? Pardon me? Yeah, if anyone, our delegations want to leave, yeah, we'll pause here to allow you to do that. Yeah, thanks. You're welcome to hang out for the rest of the meeting, of course. Okay, we're going to go ahead then. See no movement. Oh. You have a great evening. Thanks for joining us this evening. Okay. Items number 6, 6.1, 6.2, 6.3. Any? Councillor Lennox Zepp.
6.1.
You want to remove? Yep.
Yes.
Any others? Okay, we'll go ahead and, Councillor Miller.
I'll move the rest if there's no others.
There isn't any others, as all the lights went out when you said that. Okay, votes open to remove the rest. Let's close and carried. Okay, so 6.1, Angus Morassity Residential Development Update. Councillor Lennox Zepp.
Thank you. Just wondering if I could ask the director to give a brief synopsis. I read the report with interest. I just wanted to maybe hear a brief summary of what, the status we're at, where we've been and where we're at now.
Director of Planning.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Lennox, for the question. So this recommendation on the board in front of you is the result of the results of our expression of interest, which dates back to 2021. We're about 3 years into that process. We've had some really good discussions on Angus Marasti and the future of Angus Marasti, and we've been working very closely with the developer on seeing some sort of a project come to life. However, we aren't at a point where anything has been agreed upon. I know there was discussions on what public consultation would look like, and there's a number of kind of open-ended decisions that need to be made. So what we are recommending this evening is that the EOI be closed to kind of, so that comes full circle and move forward with next steps. And what essentially that means is we'll continue to own the land. If any type of a project or any type of an offer comes for that land, it will come to City Council independently of that EOI process, so council can kind of restart that process or that project from the beginning and consider it on its own merits. So it certainly doesn't mean that we're closing the door on development on this site. Quite the contrary, we want to continue to work with any developers and bring City Council any information as necessary. We just simply want to close off that EOI process because I know 3 years is a long time and there's been some expectations of the community and things like that. So that is what the recommendation reflects, simply kind of starting a new chapter with the Angus Marasti site.
And may I ask, if my recollection is correct, I think we had some kind of general proposal on dealing with this, how the developer under the EOI would proceed. And I thought we were moving along with that. Why not continue the path that we've been on?
Yeah, thank you for the question. There's been a number of kind of scenarios for that site, everything from a single-family dwelling, which was initially introduced. Over the course of time, the developer had shifted their mindset to perhaps some sort of a senior type of multi-unit facility. Costing became an issue, quite frankly, as you know, over the last number of years, and they're simply not in a position to be able to seriously move the project forward and commit to moving the process forward. So will we continue to have those discussions? Yes, we absolutely will, but we'll have them independently of the expression of interest.
And so closing the expression of interest, the land will now be up for sale, I take it?
Yeah, the land is in our land holdings. It's advertised. A price has not been placed on this property, and I don't think at the current time it will be. It's just simply that it's available for discussions, and this one I know is very close to members of council and administration, a number of things to consider. So I don't believe we'll be placing a price on this land, but rather any serious offers or inquiries or plans will be brought forward to City Council for consideration.
And so in terms of process, the land won't be sold until and unless it goes through council.
Absolutely not.
Thank you. I will move that this report be received as information and filed.
Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. I'll just make my comments brief. Councillor Lennox answered a lot of my questions through to you. So I know this particular piece of land is quite a conversation piece in the neighborhood amongst the neighbors. And of course, they always want to know what's going to happen and those things. So at this point, we're not, because it's not sold, we're not going forward with necessarily the winning proponent as it was put in the report. When would it move to public consultation? So after a sale, before a sale? I think just to clarify the process for the community would be nice. So question through the Deputy Mayor to the Director of Planning, please.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Solomon. So my recommendation to City Council is if we get any type of a project proposal, we try to get as much information as the potential developer as we can. We would bring it to you for consideration and try to get your general support to move forward with some type of a process. My suggestion about that process would look like would be to revisit the public consultation, very, very similar to what we did in the past. So I don't believe council, the feeling I've gotten from council previously is that they would not want to make a formal decision until they hear from the public. So that would be built into the recommendation and built into the process.
Thank you.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Director. I was just wondering about recouping costs and how much the demolition cost and with asbestos removal and everything all in one. Do we have that number?
Through the chair, thank you, Councilor Miller, for the question. We do have that number. I don't have it handy. I know that there is, as you know, there was an agreement made as a trade of this site. Demolition costs were part of that. Any net earnings, there is a requirement of the city to share 10% of those costs. So I can certainly provide City Council a breakdown through an inquiry response or something similar to see where we sit and what that looks like.
Right, and with all encompass with the new pipes going into the ground and how much that would cost, because it's with great difficulty. I understand that the site will need new pipes.
Yes, I can provide that as well.
Thank you, Director. Moving on to the next speaker, Councillor Lennox Epp.
Yes, just a comment that some time ago when we did perform the land swap with Prince Albert Grand Council for this piece of land, that myself, the mayor, and then Councillor Ted Zurikowski and Director of Planning attended a meeting at Arthur Petrie School. It was a public consultation type of meeting. And just a note that I think the mayor has agreed with me that it was strongly heard at that time that the community used that very old and playground, and that was of high value to the community, that playground be maintained going forward. So I just wanted to make that comment while this is on the agenda. Mayor, I'm summarizing that correctly, and my recollection is that we did hear that loud and clear and did reflect back to the community in that meeting that we expected that we would, although we had to pull out the old playground equipment from Angus Morasti School, that we would, as the item moves forward, preserve some playground plan with playground equipment.
Thanks for the comment. Councillor Edwards.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. So just to be clear, the community is aware that the plan is to continue with a development when it's possible, right? We're not going to go to the community and say, well, do you think we should build? I think the plan is, and when we sold that, we made the trade for the property, the plan is we have to develop that property to regain some value. So hopefully the consultation is this is the type of development, not we may do this, correct?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor Edwards. There's a few things that came across loud and clear at the that public consultation that happened a few years ago. One, to Councillor Lennox Epp's point, that playground space is very important to the community and replacing those amenities. Secondly, that there would be some sort of development moving forward. Nothing's been approved by council, but we made that transaction in order to develop the property in some fashion, but also to preserve some form of playground space. So that narrative has never changed, and unless advised by council, that narrative will continue in that same direction.
Okay, and so where is that narrative displayed? If someone's looking to purchase a property in that area, and we don't move ahead with this for 4 or 5, 6 years, where do they find that information? Because it can't get lost.
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. So it is all preserved through, through city council approvals and resolutions of city council. However, what we can certainly do and will continue to do is if we list the property for sale, it'll simply say to, contact the Department of Planning and Development Services for, development opportunities. So those formal council resolutions are protected through our office and through the city clerk's office, and there's no risk of that falling off.
Thank you.
We'll go to Councillor Kilmer.
Just a further question to that. It is now a green space, used by the community as a green space. How is that then maintained? Is that under our parks, like yearly, like who looks after that green space until it's sold?
Yeah, thanks, Councilor Kilmer. I don't want to speak on behalf of our Community Services Department, but I know we worked closely with our Parks Manager, Tim Yeaman, to have that property brought to a state of use. It was spray seeded, and I believe it's continues to be maintained. And that maintenance program will continue until the property is changes hands or until the property is developed. So the community can expect that that grass to continue to be mowed as a public place.
Thank you.
Okay, no more discussion. We'll go to the motion. Voting's open. And that's carried. Thank you for that. We'll move on to then 7.1, Transit Fare Review. If you would, our Evan Hastings, our transit manager, transportation traffic manager. I'll arm the podium there for you.
Good afternoon, everyone. The purpose of this report is to review transit fares in the city of Prince Albert. Fares were last altered on January 1st, 2019, and at this time, the expense to operate the service was $1.7 million. And today, for 2024, the budgeted expenses are $2.45 million, an increase of 43%. And this is due to the increased contracted transit service rate, increased fuel cost, and a 23% increase to total hours of service provided. This is a brief view of our current transit fare schedule. We'll go over this individually, but what's of note is that we have tons of different options to pay, which can be confusing for members of the public, as well as for our transit vendors. First, we'll go with the adult fares. The recommendation is to increase the fares from $70 to $80. This would be a 14% increase since 2019 and still remain the lowest adult bus pass in Saskatchewan. Next is seniors, where there's no increase to bus fare proposed. However, we would like to increase the age category for eligibility from 60 plus to 65 plus to better match Saskatoon, Regina, and the rest of Western Canada. It is of note that any adults or seniors who qualify for the discounted bus pass program do receive their passes for $25 from City Hall. Next is post-secondary transit. The recommendation here is to increase the monthly fares from $45 to $65 with a semester-long option for $225. What's of note here is in September of 2023, we had to add an East Flat number 2 bus in order to meet the capacity needs, particularly of Sask Polytech School. As we can see there, we had a 366% increase in monthly passes sold in a 1.5-year period. So in order to maintain this bus service, we want to bring up the passes to $65, which would still be the lowest price in Saskatchewan for a post-secondary pass. Next is youth transit fares, and the recommendation here is to reduce the monthly fare to $55 from $50, and introduce a category that's grade 9 to 12. So this would basically just make the transit passes cheaper for grade 7s and 8s. And once again, any youth whose parent or guardian qualifies for the social services discounted bus pass will get a pass for $25. So this is still the lowest price in Saskatchewan. And one of the things that is a little bit misunderstood is our passes are up for $55.50. However, about 98% are sold for $37.50. So in 2018, a letter of understanding was executed with each the Catholic and public school divisions, and that basically sets out subsidies for the city and for the school divisions for these high school bus passes. So adult passes are $70, youth passes are sold for $55.50, and then in the LOU, youth passes are sold to the schools for $37.50, and then a further $17.50 discount is provided by the school divisions, and they're sold to their students for $20. However, it's of note that the second cheapest high school bus pass in the province is Saskatoon at $59, so we are quite low. So the recommendation is to terminate these LOUs as of June 30th, 2024, and to explore a standard bus pass vendor agreement. And essentially the way that works, it's the same as all the vendors citywide. The vendor would get 10% of all bus passes sold, so the youth passes would be $55, and they'd be sold to the schools for $49.50. So that'd be an increase in $12. Lastly, it's important to know that the schools would no longer have an agreement saying how much they subsidize, so they'd be free to choose the subsidy they see fit. Next is child passes, and that would be a slight change to the category to become under 14. the price would go up from $35 to $40. And we'd also increase the age of eligibility for free transit from under 6 to under 10. And the purpose of this is just to improve, affordability of the transit service for families. So what that would mean is if a parent had a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old and wants to go get groceries or go to Alfred Jenkins, that 7-year-old and 9-year-old would get on the bus for free. Cash fares are quite straightforward. The proposal is to increase all fares to $3 even. This just makes it consistent and fair for all riders. A single fare is $3. In the city, we currently use cash boxes, so it's very difficult for a bus driver to know, when a senior comes on the bus and then a child and then an adult, who pays what, right? Because it switches each time. So $3, it makes it consistent for everybody, and it also allows us to sell a standard ticket book of 10 rides for $25, as opposed to multiple different categories. We just have one. So in summary, the recommendation is that the following fare structure come into effect September 1st, 2024. This will allow administration time to complete these transit vendor agreements, reach out to the Ministry of Social Services to alert them of the changes, and to reach out to the public. So thank you, and at this time I can answer any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Yeah, we have one speaker here, Mayor Dion.
I'll move the recommendation. And it's kind of nice to hear we were the lowest in Saskatchewan. We're going to increase to return some of our money, and see, it's partly our fault. And we got to get away from not raising fares or looking at fares every year at the end of the year. You look at it, 19 all the way back to that, we know what the price of fuel and costs and labor has gone. So partly sometimes when we got to take these bigger heights, it's our fault because we delay the inevitable. But even with the new rates and fares, we're still going to be the lowest in the province, so I can't argue with that, so I have no problem moving this recommendation.
Councillor Kilmer.
Thank you, and thank you very much for the presentation. It was clear and concise, and the report is very well written. I would like to get just a better understanding. We use the word transit. We're talking about transit here. We just finished passing a transit with seniors, talking about the senior transit, the access bus transit. And so just to clarify the role of the city and the types of transit that we have and the costs, can you help out with that, please?
So thank you for the question. There's 3 different types of transit in the city. We have public transit, which is fixed transit routes. So that essentially allows buses just to run on a fixed schedule to bus stops. So everybody who is able to get onto that program, they should use the public transit service. The second one is our paratransit service, which is Access Transit operated through the CSC. And this is essentially a door-to-door service for people who are unable to take regular transit. So that'd be people, in wheelchairs with mobility aids or can't get to bus stops. The third option, which is run by the CSC and the city supports through external agencies, is seniors transportation. And essentially this is people who have a lot of difficulty using standard transit, so they can get door-to-door service at a little bit of an increased rate.
Just a further clarification, so the rates though, so public transit is coming to us at council to set the rate, yet we have a company that provides the service. What about the access transit setting their rate and the senior rate? Does that come to council or do they set their own rates?
So the seniors transportation program through the CSC is not city orientated, so that would be up to them if they want to change their prices. Access Transit and paratransit services typically would follow our standard single ride fares. So right now our typical fare is $2.50 and that's what Access Transit is. So when we move up to $3, that would most likely follow with Access Transit.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Couple of questions. So you put the actual expenses from 2019 to 2024 in, but what about revenues? I didn't see that in the report. Where are we at revenue-wise from 2019 to 2024?
Well, for 2024, I guess
sorry, 2023, I guess you would probably have those numbers.
Okay. For 2019, I don't have that number on hand, but it was roughly $500,000 of revenue. And in 2023, we had $600,000 of revenue. So what we did see was the ridership increased strongly. In 2019, it was about 399,000, and last year was 523,000. So we have had increased revenues due to increased ridership. But that being said, it doesn't fully account for the differences that we're seeing from 2019 to 2024.
Yeah, not even close then?
No.
Okay, so there's a definite need to increase costs. Okay, thank you for the report.
Councillor Lennox Epp.
How much do we subsidize transit? We currently subsidize it, and it's a question of how much do we choose, it's a choice. How much do we choose to subsidize transit? And the buck stops with us. We are the body that will decide that ultimately, and we will change people's lives. There are people out right now working at stores and retail and minimum wage jobs and going to SAS Polytechnic and scraping to make ends meet. And we will make a choice and that will change their lives. And so I respect the report and I appreciate hearing what everyone said in the room. It is a choice. And so I see some of these rate increases as large increases for people within those lower means. The people who take the bus in our city, I've taken our bus with my children. The people that take the bus in our city take the bus because they need to. They are often working low-paid jobs, and they need to use the service. And they aspire to own a car, that people tell me. People, that you talk to will say, I don't have a car yet, but if I keep working hard in the city of Prince Albert, I want to own a car. I've heard that from workers recently, actually. So how much do we subsidize the service? I am hopeful that we would consider maybe a medium ground. Maybe we don't need to move to the, to some of the high end. I'm thinking about the adult passes from $70 to $80, $80 a month. That's a month to use our transit system, which is not as extensive as Saskatoon or Regina's. And I respect that we have the lowest cost for fee for service for transit in the province. We also don't have as extensive of a service as other cities. So I'm hopeful that as this discussion goes on, that I can listen to what other people have to say, and I'm hopeful that we could consider amendments to some of the higher prices. For example, maybe we go from $70 a month for an adult to $75 a month for an adult, because those are people who are not on social assistance. If you are a social assistance recipient, you're paying $25. If you're working and you're out using the bus to get to work, we're proposing that you pay $80 a month, and I'm concerned about that. I do respect the idea of the cash fares being the same at $3. Perhaps that makes sense. But there are people in this city who rely on transit and are scraping to get by, and they're doing important work in our city that others don't want to do. So I hope that we can consider that.
Councillor Edwards.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. An interesting concept of, the percentage of the subsidy, for sure. It's something to consider. Pardon? Were you looking for a question? No. Or an answer? No, I didn't think so. So, interesting concept, because in 2019, we were heavily subsidized already. The percentage would have been X, but now we're even more subsidized, well, by over 1% mill rate increase in the subsidy as we currently sit right now, well over 1%. So it'd be interesting to see the factor once you put these rates in and the expectations of the revenue of what the subsidy percentage will be if we implement these rates, if we have the same ridership versus 2019 subsidy percentage. So that's just a comment, not a question. My one question is, with the termination of the school subsidy on our part, do you expect ridership to decrease?
That will be a little bit hard to answer, because it all depends, of course, on what the school divisions decide to do. If they decide to subsidize more, there may be no impact. If they decide to subsidize less, it may be less ridership. I wouldn't expect it to change significantly, though. I would say that right now students are paying $20, which is actually less than Ministry of Social Services discounted bus pass. So the fare that we're bringing up to is quite reasonable, I guess, province-wide, and we're actually $9.50 cheaper than the next city.
And so you'll have that conversation with the school boards probably?
Yes, and I've consulted with both of them and provided them the opportunity to join in on this presentation or to present today as well. I don't know if they're deciding to present at a later date or reach out, but they haven't responded as of yet. But I did meet with them in person.
Okay, good, thank you.
Mayor Dion.
Well, I just want to do some fast checking. You know, we talked about them going to work. So actually, I got a bus pass for 2 months. And I had lots more interesting conversations. One gentleman told me he thinks the bus pass is way too cheap because he uses the bus 80 times in a month. Not twice, once to go to work and one to go home. One to go get groceries, once to go to the show, once to go to the hockey game, once to go here, once to go there. He said 80 times. And I found lots of people, I couldn't find anyone that just used it to go to work and come home, because that's their way of transportation. So if they're going to the show, they're going on the bus. So the pass was, he had no issue with the pass, strictly because he used it 80 times. And so I just want to make sure that, you know, we understand we are the cheapest in Saskatchewan, and yes, they use it to go to work, but they also use it to go get groceries. They also use it to go to the library, he told me. They use it for lots of things. So it's just not, let's just not focus that we're going to stop them from getting to work. They use that bus pass. That's why they buy a bus pass. It's a lot cheaper and they use it.
Councillor Lennox-Epp.
I move an amendment
Go ahead.
that the adult bus fare be raised, be increased to $75 per month. I would ask if I could speak on it.
Go ahead, yes.
So the proposal in the chart is $80 a month. Right now, it's $70. I see this as a compromise to offer to members of council to consider. You know, I'm concerned about any increase, but I'd like to suggest a compromise of some increase. And going from there, perhaps if we did implement a $75 pass, we could see how that impacts revenue. As Councillor Edwards mentioned, that these prices can impact how many people buy our passes. And we have seen positive increase in growth of people using our transit service. And I think it makes sense to try to keep it affordable so that more people will buy a pass and we receive more revenue going forward.
Okay, in the queue, Councillor Miller on this point, on this amendment? No, okay. Councillor Solomon on this point?
Conversations.
Go ahead, yep.
So thank you for the report, Evan, and I've had some mixed thoughts on this one. I appreciate your thorough methodology, and so my initial takeaway is that there hasn't really been any, or there hasn't been increases for 5 years. That's a significant length of time. My other question was answered by when Councillor Edwards asked it around what is the difference in revenue. So the inflation certainly has hit residents and has hit the city over the last 5 years. I think the subsidy rate is important to the conversation, and I'm not sure if I don't know what the subsidy is, whether I could support this motion for $75 a month. I kind of understood it better when I was thinking the 80. The affordability and the fixed incomes and social services rates, those are all factors, of course, in this decision. But we don't know enough information on the $75 a month, I think, to make that decision. The economies of scale, I think, is the other point that Councillor Lennox-Epp made in regards to Regina and Saskatoon. Certainly, we don't offer the same service, but we do offer the same, it's the same scale of service, but we certainly offer to our residents the same service. And they may have some savings in the economy of scale and be able to save some money as they run their operations that we maybe cannot. Again, that's probably not relevant to the decision at hand. So I'll listen to my colleagues and see where we end up on this. Thank you.
Councillor Grodnick.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I hope I'm not asking a question that's already been asked, but if it is, I apologize because my mind is kind of elsewhere here right now. But what impact would this motion have on our budget, our expense, or the budget of of the transit system, if we cut it by $5 for adult passes?
Transportation manager, yes.
If you can answer that, I don't know if you can.
Yeah, I would say the majority of our passes that we're seeing right now are all the other subsidized categories. So, post-secondary students, high school students, we see about 850 monthly passes sold for those. We see about 160 for the Ministry of Social Services discounted bus pass, about 20 for children, let's say 40 for seniors, and we probably actually only see about 40 or 50 monthly passes sold that are the full price adults. So it's not going to have a massive increase at the end of the day if we change it from 75 to 80.
Okay, thank you. Second question is, what would it cost if we totally did not subsidize busing whatsoever? If we looked at all the number of people that ride the bus, divided by this 2.445 million, what would it cost each person, if it, on an average?
Each person, it would cost about, nearly $5 a ride.
$5 a ride. And, okay, and so, the subsidy is quite substantial to the residents of Prince Albert, and I have no problem with that. I won't, right now, use the bus. Hopefully, for a long time, won't have to use the bus. But, so I totally agree with subsidizing it, but I also agree with receiving a little bit of revenue from the use of it as well. I think we've done a good job here. I think our mistake was, as Mayor Dion said, is not even like 50 cents, a month raise each year. If we would have been doing that, or $1, that would have been more understandable. One thing I do appreciate is that we're giving notice. This is April, the end of April, beginning of May, and this will only become effective in September. So it is giving the public a lot of notice when you spring a change on in any kind of fee. You don't want it, we wouldn't want to do this, make this motion in August and say it's effective September 1st. So I appreciate this coming forward at this particular time. So thank you for that.
Thank you all for the comments. I just will say thanks for the report, Evan. I always appreciate the report. It's very thorough. I do see the point that we have to increase rates, looking at pre-COVID levels of service. So I do see that there should be some change. I am the point as well, the thought that it should be a little bit more more regular, so we don't have to have a huge increase all at once, it seems like. So, to Councillor Lennox Epps, I do support the motion of looking at some a compromise here, so I will be supporting that amendment. But I do think it's we need to address these at some point. So thank you for all that, yeah. Councillor Grodnick to close.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, Councillor Lennox Epps, I think there is some merit to your motion. I worked it out, 50 bus passes a month. Save, $5, that's 250 times 12, that's $3,000 a year it'll cost the city. And you know what? I think we can afford that. I think we can afford $3,000 a year to reduce the bus pass. So I will support the amendment.
Councillor Edwards.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I'm not supporting the amendment. I mean, here's the recommendations. $80 still brings us to out of the cities compared, we're the lowest. And we have to consider $3,000 here and $3,000 there. And it's already a significant subsidy, And I'm okay with that. But again, we don't know the percentage. It's obviously went from a percentage and now we're greater percentage. Even with these rates, I'm assuming we're going to be a greater percentage than we were in 2019. I don't think there's any doubt about that. You were going to comment.
Yeah, so prior to COVID, we did see cost recovery rates from 38 to 43%, whereas as of 2023, we're sitting at 31%. So we have been steadily subsidizing this the bus program more and more each and every year. We've reduced it about 10% in the last 5 or 6 years.
So our subsidy has grown by 10% in the last 5 years.
Yes, precisely.
And that's substantial. It's substantial, and we need to care about all of the people in the city because we're all paying for these services. And so, yeah, it's $3,000, but, and you know what? I care about people too. Here we are, we had an $80 rate, we throw out $75. I'm gonna vote against it. And, you know, people can think how they wanna think, oh, Counselor Edwards doesn't care about people. I care about people. That's this, we need to move forward with the $80 recommendation. We're losing and we're growing the subsidy substantially. And I disagree with this motion completely. It's a fair rate at 80. In comparison to every other city that's compared, we're still the lowest. Thanks.
Councillor Cody.
Well, I certainly won't be supporting the motion, that's for sure. You know, we get these motions coming along all of the time and making us who vote against them because we are fiscally responsible and makes us look like a bunch of people who don't care about people. I'm as good a socialist as anyone in this community, and I can tell you this, I believe in seniors, I believe in transportation, I believe in helping them out by way of a subsidy, but we can't give all the money away at one spot. We've got to look. Now, it's 3,000 here today. Tomorrow, someone will come on with another motion. Oh, that's too much. Well, it's another 3,000. Look at when do we ever allow the rest of the citizens out there to have a little break? You know, and I don't mind these folks who need the break. After all, they're folks who don't have a vehicle maybe, or don't want to have a vehicle, and that's fine. They're working class people, and I fully support them. But at the same time, we just can't continuously give stuff away. It's impossible. We're constantly wanting to scrap this, scrap that, and put this up, put that, and I just can't see it. I just can't see it. And it really bothers me personally that we always have to vote against this kind of thing, and the public makes us look as though we couldn't care less. And it's not the facts. It's making us look bad, and it's done intentionally. I'm sure of it. And I just don't like it that we're constantly making us look like we don't care about people, and that is not the facts.
Go ahead, Councillor Lennox Sepp, you had a point. Oh, let me see if I can add this.
Point of personal privilege. I make motions and amendments for the purpose that I believe in them.
Okay. Councillor Grodnick.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I don't think, I hear what you're saying, and I supporting this, I'm not trying to make other people look bad and that I care and you don't care. I think that's totally wrong. And however it's reported, let it be reported that way. I've been reported so negatively for my 7.5 years on council. So I can handle. I will be able to handle the negativity with this issue as well as with other issues. But I think the merit I see in this motion or in this amendment is people that are on fixed income. A $10 a month is huge for them, and even $5 is huge. When you are on fixed income, it does hurt, and it would hurt, and I know we subsidize a huge. I hear you, Councillor. We do subsidize a huge amount. I get it. I just don't think in this case $3,000 a year in our budget is going to hurt the city significantly.
Thank you. Councillor Kilmer.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to add what my thoughts on this. I am not going to support this because I like the $80. I really appreciate the $30 with the seniors at 65. So for me, there's a balance. Long-term, the sweet spot that I feel that I'm consistently trying to work for the city is an increase in transportation, in the public transportation, increased so that it can be on Sundays and at nights, so more of our population can access all the things that they can do, that we have more routes, more people, more ability to, on a Sunday, go and enjoy your family time. So the amount of subsidy is a balance, and there's a sweet spot, and I mean, we're all guessing at that sweet spot. We're the perfect place to be. I heard mention that most people that are, or some people that are riding the bus, I'm probably quoting this wrong, are looking to save up for a car, and I don't agree with that. I think, in fact, our city is moving in the exact opposite direction. The more that we work on our public transportation, the more that we bring the hours of service to when you normally would drive your car and into places that we can access, the better for us. So as a standalone, which never can happen with public transportation, right? It won't be a standalone where it's 100%. It requires us as council to think further down the road. And so that's why I'm not going to support the 75. I wish that we didn't have to make the jump from 2019 to now to the 80, but we are there. The 30 with the seniors helps tremendously and is part of the balance, in my opinion. So I won't be supporting the 75.
Okay, see no more speakers. We'll go ahead and vote on the motion, on the amendment. I'm just going to create it, give us a few minutes. This is on the amendment, yes. Yeah, okay, so the amendment's open. Go ahead. Ooh, that just failed. So 5 against 4, opposed. So back to the initial motion. Councillor Grodnick.
Thank you. I'm speaking on the original, or your motion now, Mayor Dion, just very quickly. Now that was defeated, I think it's important that if this passes, we all are in support of it. I respect democracy, and I will support the $80 a month, and when I get calls or whatever, if I do, because if this is the motion of council, we all need to support motions of council inside this chamber once the decisions are made, and outside once decisions are made. So thank you for allowing me to show my opposition. However, I accept defeat on that motion, and I will move forward with accepting this if it moves forward.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you. Yeah, so I still have questions. Sorry. We're back to the questions. So I got a call from a high school that are having difficulty towards, well, they're going towards the end of the situation here where they have hardly any bus passes left to hand out, and so they're doing that sparingly. The ones that are living further from the school, they make sure and give them the bus passes. But can you possibly explain to me how that works for the students? Because I have no clue. And that's what I told principal. I don't know.
So we do actually have an unlimited amount of bus passes for those students. It depends on what the school wants to order. So sometimes they don't order quite enough bus passes and then they use them sparingly. But I've had many of schools reach out and say, hey, can we get some more? And we promptly do that.
Okay, thank you. And also, so we're the city of Prince Albert. We're the size of Moose Jaw, just pretty close, closer than Saskatoon and Regina. So in your report, which I thank you for, I just, comparable to Saskatoon, Regina, that's not apples to apples to me. And also Moose Jaw's transit service is in-house. It's not a private person doing it. So I just, do we have other places like Brandon, Manitoba, maybe, other places that we can compare this to? compare us to?
Yes, absolutely. And in the preparation of this report, I looked at cities like Brandon. I consult with them regularly, and many other cities in Western Canada. You brought up Brandon, and we've seen Moose Jaw, but there's very few cities our size throughout Canada that aren't near another larger city. So we don't have too many comparisons other than stuff like Saskatoon, Regina, Moose Jaw, and Brandon.
Thank you.
Councillor Grodnick.
Thank you. Just one last comment, and I promise this will be it. With respect to schools, I can't speak for all the schools, but my experience with one high school I worked in, no kid would ever be denied transportation. If they don't have money, they don't have, if they lost their bus pass, the schools make every effort to make sure that that child gets on the bus and gets home and gets back to school the next day. It's, you know, well, anyways, at the school that I work at, that's how it's operated. And so schools are great places that look after children, all kinds of children, and from every walk of life, every gender, etc. And so I'm very happy to say that the one that I worked in particular does that. And I know, I'm sure the others do the same. Thank you.
Okay, see no more debate. We'll go ahead into the vote. Thank you, Evan Hastings, for your presentation. And we'll go ahead and, there it is. Okay, the vote's open. And that carries. Next item, 7.2. PowerPoint presentation by Judy McLeod Campbell, Interim General Manager, EA Rawlinson Center. You're on. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much for the opportunity to give you an update on the Artists and Communities program. I know you've heard a little bit about it through the culture plan reports that I've done in the past, but we wanted to give you a little bit more information about this important and exciting program and how much it's grown. So this program came out as an initiative of the culture plan. It meets several goals in the plan, but in particular two, in that it reaches a lot of our underserved population and providing meaningful ongoing arts programs as opposed to one-off workshop, 2-week type programs that would typically be run through the Arts Center or an event at the EA Rawlinson Center. It also provides a great opportunity for our local artists to have this meaningful work in these community organizations and in our community. So I just wanted to give you that background. Man Art Gallery's loss was our gain. When Jesse decided not to go back to the Man Art Gallery, I initially, or right away went, okay, we have this significant asset in our community, how can we best utilize her? And this program and opportunity definitely came to mind. I'm going to turn it over to Jesse right away to give you more information about this program, but I just wanted to give that little bit of background. She started in 2020 doing some research and development with community organizations and artists to determine what the needs and interests were, and then we hit the ground running in 2021, which obviously wasn't a great year to hit the ground running during COVID. However, we did take a slow start, and you'll see and hear about the growth through Jesse. I also want to acknowledge Elder Liz Satie. Elder Liz has been involved with the program for quite a while now, and we really appreciate her guidance with this program. And she starts, as an example, she's provided input and guidance into how the program runs, and she also starts our meetings and retreats in a good way. So I just wanted to acknowledge and thank Liz and thank her for staying. And I'll turn it over to Jesse. So Jesse Campbell.
Thank you, and my apologies for not introducing you, Jesse, Coordinator Curator at the Artists and Communities of Prince Albert. Yes. So thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Judy, for the introduction. I'm very happy to be here today to share with you what Artists in Communities has come to be in the last 3.5 years or so. And I know that you do have that written report from Judy that gives some great quantitative information on our statistics and financials. And in my brief chat today here, I'm going to look at a little bit more of the qualitative side of the program. Do we have the PowerPoint? Okay.
Just give us a few minutes. Yes, we'll have it up and running. It's on one screen now. Is that the best we're gonna get?
Yeah.
Okay.
Shall I go
well,
with the one? Okay,
Yes,
great.
we'll all focus on this side, yes.
Great, thank you. So Artists in Communities supports a group of local artists who are practicing what is called community engaged art. This is more of a contemporary art form, and it's not really as visible to the public eye as other traditional artistic practices. That's because the heart of this type of work is human interaction and social connection between artists and various communities. And what you are seeing right here on this first slide is a picture of Marcy Friesen, a very special person and an incredible bead artist. And she is creating gauntlets with youth from communities building youth futures. But it's not so much about the physical thing that they're creating. It's the fact that they are sitting in a circle together, they're laughing, they're having dialogue, they're expressing themselves, and they're sharing in this experience together. And it really is the experiences and the knowledge of the participants that are centered in this artistic form. It's their voices that are uplifted in the process of creating art. And now I'm trying to change my slide. Here we are. Okay. And if anyone here in the room has created artwork in any form at any time in your life, I'm sure you know that it takes a certain amount of bravery to put yourself out there in that creative expression. Making art requires us to tap deep into ourselves, into our cultures, our backgrounds, our identities as they've come to be formed here in Prince Albert. And channeling that inner sense of self into the creation of artwork is a very vulnerable thing. And that's especially true for people who are perhaps marginalized or misrepresented. And those are the type of audience with whom Artists in Communities is engaging. Now, when our program really began to develop in 2021, we had initially connected with a group of 4 artists, and you can see their names there on the left. At that time, we had received our first major grant from Sask Arts to fund Linda Monahan to mentor this group of artists for 1 year as they began to develop programs and relationships at local organizations. And you can see those on the right. And at that time, we'd also received a very nice grant from Communities Initiatives Funds to pay the artists to conduct their workshops. So it's just as important that the artists are compensated at a professional rate. Since that time, we've continued to receive ongoing support from Sask Arts, CIF, and other funding sources to support our group that now consists of 8 artists. And with that comes many more programs at more local organizations. It's really exciting for me to see our group evolving and to welcome in new people who are at a variety of stages in their community art practices. And for me, working to support them really makes for a strong local arts ecology. Now, there's no real formula for how to do this type of community-engaged artwork. There's no textbook to reference. So we have developed a locally built model to support our group of artists who then go out and conduct their programs in communities. We really try to be responsive to their needs, their challenges, their ideas, and their goals, all with the idea of building their confidence and their capacities. We accomplish this by regularly getting together as a group, and you can see a few images of some of our group gatherings from the last year. And a key part of our program, as Judy mentioned, has been having Elder Liz Satie to provide her wonderful guidance and sharing ways that we can live respectfully and responsibly on this treaty territory. We also learn by using our funding from Sask Arts to bring in professionals in the community-engaged art forms in Saskatchewan. These are people who have devoted their careers in this community setting, and so we generate a lot of discussion and have a lot of great learning and knowledge sharing from them. So as I wrap up my very brief presentation here, I just want to underline that Artists and Communities really is driven by peer support, by inclusivity, and by being socially conscious. As we continue to offer a stable support and knowledge-sharing system for our artists, we do believe that we are facilitating social change as we grow and strengthen their community-based practices. And above all, what the last couple of years has taught me is that the strength and the success of a community really is underpinned by people coming together, working together in partnerships, sharing knowledges, experiences, and resources with one another. And I really believe this nurtures a diverse artistic landscape where artists can work and they can be supported, and where communities can be healthy. And we've seen this generate positive effects, and I think that will continue long into the future. And I guess really to conclude it, to wrap it up, we do have a video that we recently created that we want to share. But I think my PowerPoint skills come from like 2006, and I didn't embed this properly in the presentation. So I'm hoping that we can access it. Here we are. Perfect. Thank you.
It doesn't matter what artists and communities are joining, they're able to tap into themselves and maybe find a piece that they didn't know they had potential for or that they could do.
Artists and Communities program is really about providing more access in the community. Our Community Services Department with the City of Prince Albert is always looking for ways to reach those that are especially underrepresented, right, underserved in our community. So this was a great opportunity to be able to take arts to people, and particularly people who just don't get those services and opportunities.
The important part of artists working in communities is that they regularly connect with the people in their programs. So that sustained engagement really allows trusting relationships to be built with the artists.
I really appreciate that Artists and Communities connects artists with groups that might be underprivileged in that way, that gives me the opportunities to connect with those groups in a really healthy and fulsome way.
Artists and Community has been a huge part of CBYF. Communities Building Youth Futures, we work with youth in the community. We want to connect youth with people in the community that are there for them and know that they can reach out.
And trying to get people to understand deeper themselves rather than always thinking about the hardships that exist in the world.
Through Artists and Community, we've been able to build those relationships, build those mentorships, and I think that is just a natural connection, and to continue having these workshops is so important for the youth in our community.
I think that a mentor can play a very important role in working with artists who are interested in doing community arts programming.
The first meeting that we had in the mentorship, something that was quite powerful was the idea of matriarch and matriarchy. I have lost my matriarchy, which is my mom and my kukum, and the fact that I get to work with all of these strong, independent women that know the struggles that a young person like me might have went through, and getting a piece of something that I lost back.
So doing workshops and mentorship, it's so much deeper than just sitting down and beating. It's the conversations that are happening during these workshops and mentorships.
I'm just so happy to be part of Artists and Communities. I've learned so much. It's just been a privilege to bear witness to these stories, to laugh with people, to cry with people, and if I can assist them in any way of just processing life, writing, journaling, life storytelling, it's all just processing our own stories and what we've been through in life.
Just hope that we can keep forging forward and that more and more people come out and take advantage of everything that Artists Communities has to offer.
Arts are seeds that are planted that are not for us to know where they come. So therefore, my responsibility as the artist is to plant those seeds, because my legacy is to ensure that the art can continue to be made long after I'm gone.
And I think that this is a place that can really benefit from the work that artists can bring in, especially people who are maybe from this place and have an innate understanding and can share their experiences and their memories, their vision for what could be.
And so to have different artists sharing their knowledge with different people is going to go a lot further. We're going to make more connections. Will go a long way to making the community of Prince Albert closer knit.
Bravo. That's very good. We're gonna watch the credits as well. Yes, very good presentation. Thank you so much. Great video as well. You're doing some fantastic work in our community, and I recognize a lot of the artists there too. So that was great as well. We'll take a comment or question. Councillor Grodnick.
Good, well, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll move the recommendation that we received and filed. And just thank you both Judy and Jesse for your presentation today. Art is wonderful. Art makes a community, and when people express themselves, and as the one artist there said, they tell their story. That's what it's about, is telling your story and what you're thinking and what you're feeling. And in a free and democratic society, it's always great to see that. And just as a historical perspective, that's the first thing that fascist dictators have attacked, was the arts. They get rid of the arts because that's individual expression, individual freedom, and that's what these people don't like. And so, as Liz said, our community just grows closer together when people are involved in the arts and share their talents. So thank you. And you definitely have shared your talents with this community, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, no other comments? We'll go ahead into the vote then. Vote's open. Oh, and that's carried. Thank you. And thank you for the presentation. We'll move forward here, yes.
Thank you so much.
The next item on the agenda, 7.3, City Vacant Land Sales and Vacant Resident Lot Program. Verbal presentation by our Director of Planning and Services, Craig Gittinger. Oh, you got it? Okay. 1 second, yeah. Before we get to you, Councillor Miller.
Thank you. I'll take a conflict of interest. I do own vacant property. Thank
Okay.
you.
So wait for Councillor Miller to leave. Okay, go ahead, Director. Thank you very much for your patience.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, members of the Executive Committee. A few things that we're going to be discussing this evening is looking at our city-owned $1 lot program, along with revisiting our vacant residential lot program, and also looking at different ways to incentivize the demolition of some of our vacant and derelict properties. Before I do my very brief presentation, I think it's important for us to take a step back and reflect on the intent of these programs in the first place. And they are to do a few things. Obviously, they're to clean up our city, to reimagine what some of our vacant lots can, how they can be developed, and also simply to reduce costs. There's a significant cost associated with vacant lots. There's a significant costs associated with derelict properties, and to see them reimagined and to develop ways to see new taxation revenue is paramount in these types of discussions. So regardless of where these types of programs are funded from, I think it's important that we keep in mind the ultimate intent of these types of programs. So in 2017, we developed a $1 lot program where essentially we placed 11 tax title properties on the market for $1. We communicated with our school divisions and we both agreed essentially to write off the taxation, so there's nothing owing on these properties. We simply want to sell them for $1 and see them a higher and better use as they are currently used. Now the uptake on that was slow. We've seen about 2 or 3 of these properties sold over the course of time. As 2 are sold, we see 3 or 4 brought back onto the market. So I think we're sitting at about 13 currently in our inventory. Now, one of the reasons why I think these programs aren't as successful as they could be is, number one, we require a $10,000 retainer. rationale behind that is that to discourage flipping of these properties. I know it's not necessarily to make money, but it's to encourage, to make sure that people are serious about utilizing them. And secondly, a quitclaim. Essentially, the properties get returned to the city if they're not being used. Now, I believe those two conditions have held up the use of those properties. Often it's nonprofit organizations, nonprofit housing agencies that want to purchase those properties, and they don't have $10,000 to just give the city to hold on to for any amount of time. So I think eliminating that requirement would increase the usership of this program, and also getting rid of the quitclaim. The city undertakes a lot of use and maintenance of these properties, and even if it's just to sell to an adjacent owner to own more property, it does shift the resources to the homeowner, and they take ownership of their property, and they cut the grass, and those those expenses are greatly reduced. So that's recommendation number one. Number two is that the vacant residential lot program be expanded based on the details outlined in the report. Firstly, we are also suggesting that if someone buys one of these dollar lots that are owned by the city, why not open up the vacant residential lot program to those property owners? So essentially, I could sell the property for $1, and then we could give them a grant for $10,000 out of that reserve to build a home, to build something that'll generate taxation revenue. Now, I understand that since those properties are owned by the city, they don't contribute to the vacant lot reserve. However, again, looking back at the broader picture and what the intent of these programs are, the intent is to see taxation revenue. So we do recoup those costs in other ways. And thirdly, I believe it was Councillor Head, you made a motion in regards to finding a way to incentivize property owners to make improvements to boarded up buildings and houses. Now, there's a number of ways to do that, and that is a long and complex conversation, but as part of today, I think it's fair to share with you that the biggest inhibitor to developing vacant and derelict properties is the demolition costs. It's very expensive. Again, I think there are ways that we could potentially help out these property owners. Demolition costs are upwards of $10,000 to $15,000. So if we use a program such as a vacant residential lot reserve to incentivize development of those properties as well to offset the cost of demolition, I think, again, we are reaching the broader prospect of the development of these properties, getting taxation revenue, et cetera, et cetera. So that is what the recommendation is reflecting today. In summary, breaking down some of the barriers of our $1 lot program, making things easier for a residential vacant lot program so those $1 lots can qualify for that program, and also reducing the cost of demolition of some of our vacant and derelict properties by allowing a demolition to be funded from that program. You'll recall that the vacant lot reserve collects about $150,000 per year from that vacant lot levy we put on just 1 year. So that'll grow at a fairly rapid pace. It doesn't cost the taxpayer any additional money in addition to that reserve. And of course, we will report back to council on the health of that reserve over the course of time as well. And again, just the benefit of that vacant residential lot program to get rid of those houses. Our bylaw unit is very much taxed with those properties. I know there is one attached to the report today. We've got 15 open files since 2020, and I would suggest that's actually on the lower end of some of those properties. In some cases, we'll have, over the course of time, 50 visits. And we did some very rough math, and of our 2 bylaw officers, I think 100% of one of those positions' time could be spent on these lots. So the demolition of those houses, especially if the property owners are in support, could go a really long way to freeing up time and quite frankly, allowing our bylaw officers to focus on more important things and potentially generate some taxation revenue as well. So with that, I'll pass it on to you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Okay, the lights went on. We'll go ahead to Mayor Dion.
Well, they know where I stand, so I'll just echo this again. On our vacant lot program, where we give you $10,000 if you build on it, it's only been in effect for 3 or 4 months, so I'm even shocked that we're even talking about it, because it hasn't had any time to grow. But I do understand we have five applicants now. We already have 5. We said 10. Okay, so think about what we're doing. We were attacking vacant lots with this program. We wanted to get 10. Out of the first quarter, we've already got 5. The other reason that I don't support using that vacant lot thing, I don't believe if you don't pay into a reserve, you should not have the right to get money out of that reserve. That reserve is 100% funded by the vacant lots because we increased the value to $1,600 and we put that extra money in that's where we got the $150. Yeah, I have no problem if you want to fund it out of it, then you bring a report back from planning saying that we're going to start charging boarded up houses another $800 a year to get into this program. You're asking one program that we've only operated for 4 or 5 months and have not advertised it very well. Okay, I believe we could have had a lot more if we would have wrote every contractor and builder and said that we had this opportunity. And that came from the Construction Association. How do we know your programs if you don't tell us? So we have a program that's just in it, brand new, isn't even 6 months old. We've already reached half the goal that we wanted, funded by those people. They're asking, the department is, and this is the only argument I have with them, I have no problem you extending it, but how are you going to fund those those derelict houses into this program? Because the vacant lot people are already paying for it. So I am not going to stand by and say, well, we're going to make them pay for the derelict houses too. That's totally out to lunch. Doesn't even make any political sense. We have a great program. I don't even believe we should be touching it. We were going to report back after a year, because if you remember, after a year, if it wasn't successful, we were going to continue to tax and increase the payment to $15,000 instead of 10 to incentivize it to get taxes. So the only issue I have with this program is where they want to take the money from. To me, you have no right taking it from a fund that they don't contribute to. Well, I'm going to ask him to explain which one it's going to. But to me, we shouldn't even be touching this program. This program is brand new. And look at it, we've already got half of our goal. And we're in month 4 of the year. And we're not even into construction season yet. And I do believe if we advertise it more and heavier and push the issue, that we'll have our 10. We'll probably come back to council and ask for more, which is what we want. So I don't want to distinguish from dealing with the vacant lot issue, which we have. I do believe we have. And now to drag in an issue just because a councillor that I think that sat in this seat wanted something done with the boarded up houses, which I agree. But you should not incentivize that from another successful program that's only 4 months old, that those people pay into it. To me, let's figure out how to get these people that have boarded up houses to pay into a fund and then create a fund to encourage people to demolish and build. So unless the department has another suggestion, maybe what they should suggest, and they didn't want to do this because it'll be controversial to my neighbor, is maybe do this program but fund it out of the housing reserve. There's 600 and some thousand in that reserve, and there's no rules. That's where it should come from. Where the vacant house one, the vacant lot one, we have a plan and a policy, and we're not even going to give it a year to see if it's successful. I think it's already successful because we already have 5 lots being built on. So to me, in the month 4, we have a successful program. So I cannot support this the way it's written. I do support that we have to come up with a program for the boarded up and derelict properties. I agree with that 100%. You want to send them to landfill, I have no issue. But you should not be funding them out of a program that we tax those houses directly for. I'll tell you this, if I paid that extra fund and I found out you were doing this, I would not be paying that fund. Because now you're penalizing me for something that I have nothing to do with. I have a vacant lot, I don't have a derelict building. So to me, I like this program, but what should have happened is they should have recommended that the funding come out of the housing reserve, not out of this successful program that's only 4 months old. So I'm encouraging council, don't touch that program. Let's wait for a year like we said. Let's review it in a year and see it's successful. Because it's dealing with the vacant lots. And that's what the program's about. You want to deal with demolition buildings, derelict properties, well then come up with another program. Because I think this was successful, or fund it from an existing reserve that we have. Thank you.
Councillor Kilmer.
Thank you. I would like to make an amendment to
There's no motion.
Or I would like to, I know, I'm stuck in the same spot I was just a meeting ago. I would like to move. I would like to move this motion. And then I'd like to make an amendment. I know,
Hang on.
leave me alone. Here we go. Okay, here we go. So I would like to make an amendment to this motion.
Oh, okay, I have a little bit of issue. So I get you're the mover of the motion. I don't think you can amend your own motion. You just make
Yeah,
it. You just,
okay.
so you made the motion.
Take
Maybe-
away the movement, the
maybe-
move, then. Yes?
1 second, okay?
Thank you.
Turn your light on.
Thank you very much.
I'll move the motion.
Councillor Grodnick?
I'll move the motion so Councillor Kilmer can amend it. And I'll agree to any friendly amendment.
Ooh, yikes. Okay, Councillor Kilmer.
Okay, so I would like to move an amendment that we remove in this motion number 2, line number 2, that line number 3 becomes line number 2. And that the incentive be established from the housing reserve to offset the cost of demolished and boarded and derelict homes through the waiver of dump fees. And that a report regarding the update to vacant residential lot program and the establishment of the demolition incentive program be considered at an upcoming city council meeting. Sorry, did I talk too fast?
Carry on, sorry.
So 3 becomes 2. That an incentive be established to offset the cost of demolishing boarded and derelict homes from or using the housing reserve. And include waiving dump fees. Okay. And then number 3, that a report regarding the update to the vacant residential lot program and the establishment of a demolition incentive program be considered at an upcoming city council meeting. So in other words, waiting for them to come up with the cost and the amount. So, and if I could, I'd like to speak to it.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Kilmer.
Or maybe, sorry, to the next executive rather than council.
We'll come to
Upcoming
the next
executive
city-
meeting.
Next executive committee meeting.
Yeah, sorry. Executive meeting. Just so then we get a chance to discuss it and upcoming, thank you, sorry. Thank you.
Okay, and
So currently, I have a couple questions that will help, and I'd like to discuss it. Currently, the process of demolition of a home takes what? Can you go through the process kind of in a quick?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Well, firstly, the decision needs to be made whether a house is to be demolished or not. And in some cases, the city has to take action depending on where the enforcement kind of process is. Secondly, we work with the homeowner and work with them to get the property demolished. It's a fairly simple process. We have to work with Crown corporations to make sure everything's terminated and the water's shut off, et cetera, et cetera. We put out a tender for the work. That work is bid on, we award the tender, and then the property is demolished. So the process does not take very long. I would say getting the services terminated is probably one of the longest parts, but it happens over the course of, I'd say, about a month to 2 months, where you could see a property demolished from beginning to end.
Okay, thank you very much. So my hope with this motion is that we will find that the city doesn't have to take the action, that there's enough of an incentive that the homeowner makes that decision to move that property as quickly as possible on their own, and then build a new housing unit on that property. So I do think that might help us expedite and also save the city some valuable resources and time between fire and our, fire and other services that continually, I have a few homes in my ward that are continually being visited to maintain the boards, put out a fire. And so we need to, I'm hoping that this will help prior to get to a property being in the system, that the city resorts to taking it over and making it get demolished on our dollar.
Okay, any questions or clarification needed on the amendment? So Councillor Solomon, is this on this point? Councillor Solomon, go ahead.
Thank you. So first of all, I guess just a point. I'm glad that we're not paying people $10,000 to buy our dollar lots. That's basically what that equated to if we expanded our vacant residential lot program. So I'm glad that that's been removed from this motion. I do have a point of clarity, though, I guess. In removing the $10,000 retainer requirement, that was meant, I guess, to remove that roadblock from folks. But as I think through it, and maybe I'm not thinking through it correctly, so I go and I buy a lot for $1, and I take title of that property, and all the best intentions in the world. 3 years goes by and I don't pay my taxes because things have changed. It was only $1. The city then has to take action and take that property back. And of course, all the costs that go with that. So are we further ahead by having no retainer? Or what, how would that work that a situation like that wouldn't come to play, I guess?
Yeah, thank you for the question through the chair to Councillor Solomon. The intent behind the retainer was to have the property developed. So in removing the retainer, I care less about the development of the property and more of the city offloading those properties. Now, the most common circumstance that would come up is that we've got a small property that the neighbor says, you know what, if I wouldn't mind buying that property from you, from the city, and I would just like to fence it in and make it become my own yard. And we get quite a few of those requests, actually. But when I say, okay, but you have to pay us $10,000, it just doesn't work. So if we get rid of those properties and ownership changes, then basically that gets rid of the need to pay attention to the bylaw enforcement, the fire, and all those types of things. So we're not necessarily getting taxation dollars off of the sale of those properties. We still can, but we are saving money on pretty valuable resources, as Councillor Kindler pointed out.
We are, but we're also, I guess we're not really receiving any more revenue because we've received $1. Our tax revenue may or may not go up, and we may find ourselves in tax enforcement on some of these properties, right? So I'm just trying to understand where the balance is in that. So I understand your point, and just I wouldn't want to get caught a bunch of times with these dollar lots where people have good intentions and just can't make it work in the end, right? So I guess I'll leave my comments to that. Thank you.
Hey, Councillor Lennox Zepp on this point, on the amendment.
So just to be clear, I think what I see on the screen is a full motion. So I move an amendment. I think it's a full motion. It's a full motion.
Yeah.
So my amendment, when we're ready,
Go ahead.
that the value of property tax from the city vacant lot sales program, and demolition program be dedicated to the housing reserve. And I'd like to speak on it if I may.
Go ahead, yes.
So the reason I've thought of this is perhaps two reasons. One is that we've done something like this with, I think it was the mayor's motion on the vacant lot program that we implemented last budget, which is that vacant lot owners are paying that levy in to their own program to utilize it in an ongoing way. This is a similar idea. It also stems from the $42,500 amount that in city policy that we place into housing reserve. We haven't lately, but that is standing. Now, if any of you have ever wondered why is it $42,500 each year that we're supposed to input in, maybe I could just ask the Director of Planning. I'm going to say my understanding, and if I get any of it wrong, maybe I can ask you for clarification. But my understanding is the reason it's $42,500 is that the city had been determining the value of property taxation from new development. I think there's a specific development, maybe you can help me on, and that was an amount dedicated to the housing reserve to keep it alive and flush. Did I miss any detail there?
Director?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Through to the chair, you're about halfway there. So 4% of the taxes from affordable housing projects is dedicated to the reserve. So that's one funding stream. And the second is 4% of city lot sales also funds that reserve. 42,850 simply reflects an average that we were pulling in at the time. So just the affordable housing projects is the only thing that was missed there.
I very much appreciate that. And so that's kind of the background of why this amendment might make sense to consider. And it's something to think about tonight, maybe something we can think about until the next council meeting. I know it's in closing, the idea being that let's do these great programs, and then when someone builds on the vacant lot that we spent that money on, we spent out of the housing reserve, put the value back in, and we have a past history of being able to dedicate, for example, $42,500 in a similar analogous way.
Okay. Anybody on this motion? Mayor Dion.
Okay, so if I read what you say, then you should remove the vacant lot program, because that's not funded from the housing reserve. The vacant lot program is funded by the people with vacant lots. And I have no issue returning the money to the housing reserve on the demolition program, because that's where we're going to get the money from. But I don't want to give you the extra money, because that's what you're asking for. And also, on the dedicated housing reserve, how long do you want those taxes paid to that reserve? So if, for example, say we take $8,000 out of that to demolish the house, and they build a house and the taxes are $4,000 a year, in 2 years that money's paid back. I won't want it to keep going forever. So those are my two questions, is that, first of all, I won't support it because the dollar lots, they're funding themselves with that program. The demolition, I understand where you're coming from. I have no problem putting the money back in the reserve. But I also want a period of time. I don't want it to go the way it reads now. It goes on forever. So there'll be a positive game, and we already have a formula on how we fund the housing reserve. So those are my two questions to the mover. If she's willing to remove the value lots, because they don't contribute and we're not paying for it out of the housing reserve. And the other thing, if she would put a time frame on the length of time that money gets paid into the housing reserve.
Councillor Lennox-Zep.
Certainly, yeah. I don't mind taking the phrase vacant lot sales program out. I had thought that there was some funds going from housing reserve, but I take your point. And in terms of timeline, I guess that's up to council. We could certainly state until balance is met of what was owing, maybe housing, after the word housing reserve, dedicated housing reserve, until balance is met, or for, but that's something we can maybe consider. Until amount recovered, that's a better phrase. Dedicated housing reserve until the balance is recovered. So I'm open to other ideas.
Councillor Edwards on this motion or on this amendment? No? Okay, is any speakers to this amendment then? Seeing none then, I think we're ready to go ahead and vote on the amendment. 1 second while we put it into the system. Yep. Yeah, so once we do this amendment, then it'll come to you, yeah. Okay, so the amendment is, yes. So So the vote is opened for the amendment, voting on the amendment. One more. Okay, well, it's closed, and that's passed, that's carried. Okay, so we'll go ahead and vote on the initial motion. Councillor Edwards, do you have a comment on that one?
Yes,
Go
I
ahead,
do.
yes.
So, you pointed out to demolish as an incentive. We want you to demolish your boarded up house, but there's no incentive to renovate. Right? Right now, we're not seeing, some of these houses don't need to be demolished. They need to be rebuilt and be available for rental. But because we have now incentivized, or incentivized the vacant lot to say, okay, it's $1,600, and you say it in your report, it's cheaper to keep up the boarded up housing. I think we need to move a motion at some point, maybe not today, but if you've kept your house boarded up for over X amount of months, I mean, it takes time to renovate, I understand that, but if you've kept it boarded up for over a year, we need to charge them the $1,600 a year. How do we get there, and what's the magic number for months to take to have that boarded up house?
To the director, yes, if you could.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. And it's a great question, Councillor Edwards. When I referenced that the issue is much bigger, and you alluded to it as well, than what is on the board today, that's the exact challenge we have, right? We only know a board or a house is boarded if it's reported. And we only know whether a house is vacant is if it's reported. So to implement a program that captures accurately every boarded home, every vacant, every derelict home in the property is very, very difficult with the resources that we have today, and certainly would have an impact on upcoming budgets. So what we've presented with you today, we tried to focus on what we could, short-term, what we could implement short-term with our reserves. I'm comfortable with what you've landed on this evening. I will say, and I know it's a question that comes up, that if someone gets some money to demolish their property, well, now all of a sudden they're going to be paying the $1,500 or $1,400 vacant property tax immediately. I will remind council that doesn't take place until the third year. So you do have a 2-year window to figure out what you want to do with your property. You could sell it, right, before you start paying that vacant property tax. So I won't suggest that that's an incentive, but certainly it doesn't present a disincentive to tear down your home. But back to your point of how do we incentivize bringing properties back to life, it's part of a much larger issue, and establishing what that threshold looks like of what is acceptable to members of council and how much money to give for a program like that would include a lot of research and information to be brought to council, which we're prepared to do, but just not in the time frame provided for tonight's meeting.
And I'm not even looking for us to give money, but if you have no desire to repair your house, you should be penalized. And I know that we're certainly trying to get them to tear it down, and there's bylaws to enforce, which takes months, but maybe we can help that by creating a motion to say, if you haven't done something with your boarded up house in 12 months, you will pay the $1,600 a year that we're charging. That to me makes perfect sense.
And there's actually communities that have done that. It's a very simple program. The program implementation of the program itself is not difficult. It's just identifying which properties are boarded up and vacant. And next to going up and down every single street and making a list once a week with only 2 bylaw officers, that's just not a sustainable approach. But that is something that I think we need to look at out of the box ways of doing that, and we're certainly willing to
So we
attempt to do
could
that.
make that motion and make a motion that says once recorded, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's reflected in the motion the councillor had made. I certainly don't want to close that motion off with what is being presented this evening. I think that's something that we're prepared to revisit, and we will be revisiting. But you're right, it could be focused on just the one that's reported, and maybe our community members will more actively report those types of things. And So I think there's options there. And I think there's a motion in place that,
I don't think it's that difficult. So keep that in your toolbox for next council meeting, and we'll create one together.
sure.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, I have other questions here. I think I do. No, I covered it.
Mayor Dion.
Okay, so I'm gonna throw a little curve in, just a little one, okay? Because I dealt with this one house personally, so I'm aware of it. Are we gonna cap what we're gonna pay for demolition? Now, the reason I say that, this house that I just dealt with up at the courthouse, they wouldn't demolish it because the demolition fee was $22,000, landfill fee, let alone the demolition fee to demolish it, because it was a two-story brick house. So the normal houses that are one story that are boarded up, they're probably 6,000 to 7,000 if they don't have asbestos in them to tear down. So that's my other concern is, you know, one house, we're gonna pay 7,000 to demolish. Next house is gonna, for the landfill fees. Then the next house is gonna be 22,000. So I just want, just to throw that out there, I don't expect anyone to do anything with it at the moment, but I just dealt with this house that was 22,000. And why he was mad, it was only 14,000 for the contractor to demolish it. But because it was brick and the weight in the building, it was 22,000 to drop it off at the landfill, which I defended because we just spent $6 million filling that cell, and I didn't want a house filling it up. So I'm just throwing out, because that's one thing in the program too, that we haven't talked caps or restrictions on what we're gonna demolish. So I just thought I'd just add that out to the conversation.
Good point. Councillor Kilmer.
And I appreciate that being added. I do think that the motion is vague enough and ask the department to, and that they would come back with some caveats that they would have thought about because they are the experts in that area. So I think it gives enough latitude to, thank you.
Councillor Edwards.
And just one more thing, it doesn't specify which landfill, and it has to be our landfill, obviously, right? We don't want this to go elsewhere and then we're paying some other municipality their fees. At our landfill.
But if they take it somewhere else, it won't cost us because that's not part of the program.
Waiving dump fees, that's my point. At the Prince Albert landfill.
This benefits.
Okay, well, I want to thank the report. I'll take the time. There's no more speakers, lights on, but thank you for bringing this forward. And I know there's been a lot of thought and work put into this. I know it's just a simple motion, but the idea of moving our counts and/or the direction of the city into this addressing derelict homes is important. And so it is going to be a cost item, and I'm happy that we're taking this approach here today and small steps forward. So we'll go ahead with the vote. Sorry? Oh, yeah, so we had an addition of the city landfill included in there as well, so. And the vote is open. And accepted. Closed and accepted, that's passed, thank you. I know we have 2 pieces left. I know Councillor Miller's out of the room, so unfinished business, I don't see any, and adjournment, I guess so. Councillor Kilmer moves to adjourn. Yeah, we'll do the 30 minutes for lunch here, yeah. So the adjournment is open. Okay, and that's closed and that's carried. So see you in 30 minutes.